just had a baby and we had no idea she was pregnant.
Ever since that dramatic December day played out at Hacienda Healthcare, a lot has happened. But now we're getting a look at the official police report from the Hacienda investigation. We'll warn you, parts of it are disturbing. For example, when the victim, who police confirm was unable to talk, move, swallow, or breathe normally, was brought to the hospital, a doctor said she showed signs of being sexually active and having given birth before, suggesting this may not have been the only time the woman had a baby. Interviews with Hacienda nurses and employees indicate the woman's stomach had been bloated for 4 months, and she had no menstruation for 6 months. A doctor ordered an ultrasound, but the test was declined by the diagnostic company. The police report even says that in 2002, the victim was part of a group of patients who were believed to have been touched inappropriately.
Got a DNA, have the person in custody, and he's in jail.
And then there's the accused, Nathan Sutherland, arrested after a DNA match. In the report, employees say after the baby was born, Sutherland called in sick for the next 2 to 3 Sundays and told one employee he was going through a rough time and asked her to pray for him.
And I will tell you something that as an investigator, as a member of our community, that I look at as important is this was an employee rather than a stranger who made his way into the facility.
Police say Sutherland was a licensed practical nurse who had direct contact with the victim. Through a court order, they got DNA from Sutherland and say it matched with the victim's baby.
Mr. Sutherland, may I have your full name, please?
Nathan Darcy Sutherland.
And your date of birth?
3/31/1982.
Standing next to his attorney in court today, a judge reads off the serious charges he's facing. A prosecutor, off camera, says the state will not settle for anything less than prison time.
The defendant sexually assaulted a very vulnerable adult who had no capacity to resist, no capacity to cry out, no capacity to do anything other than be subject to what the defendant did to her.
One of our concerns is were there other victims or how many times this occurred. We may not know how many times this occurred.
The only allegation at this point is that there's DNA.
So do you believe the client is innocent?
I believe the client is entitled to due process and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, as all defendants are.
In court, Gregan told the judge there's no proof Sutherland is the guy.
There's no direct evidence that Mr. Sutherland has committed these acts. I know at this point there is DNA. Mr. Sutherland will have a right and have his own DNA expert.
So what can you tell us about the DNA? You were talking...
I can't tell you anything, but I haven't received discovery, but there's an allegation of DNA. That's all I can tell you at this point.
And so you guys do plan to challenge that?
Well, we plan to have it tested, for sure.
So you will run your own DNA tests?
Oh, correct.
Judge set Sutherland's bond at $500,000 cash, which his attorney argued is excessive since Sutherland does not have a criminal history.
Still with me is criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, and defense attorney Kirk Nurmi. Now, let me start with you, Eklund. First of all, this is the type of story that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. But it has been found out since then that the DNA from the child matches him. But here's what he's claiming, Eklund. He's claiming that they got that DNA by misrepresenting information. So, for instance, he's saying they wanted to test everyone that had come in contact or had access to the victim in this case. At the time that they took his DNA, they did not know whether he had access to her, so they should not have taken his DNA, and for that reason, he's asking for it to be thrown out. What is the viability of that argument?
Well, I don't think it will really hold because of the inevitable discovery doctrine. Although, yes, although they probably got his DNA through not knowing all the information, but at the end of the day, at one point, all the employees were going to have to give DNA because we still have a child that we need to account for. So although it's an ambitious argument, I do not believe that the DNA is going to be thrown out. Because I doubt if the DNA, unless they can show that that child is not his child, I do not see how you're going to pass inevitable discovery.
Now, Nima Rahmani, as a former prosecutor, the state has said they won't accept anything. I was wondering why there wasn't a deal here. If there was this DNA situation, that they may be waiting to find out if they can get that DNA tossed before actually getting into serious talks. But the state says they will not accept anything that doesn't include jail time. That sounds right to me.
I agree, Michael, nor should they. I mean, this is a woman who was raped, someone who is intellectually disabled since she was 3 years old. She has no use of her limbs. These are the folks that our society needs to protect more than anyone. And Sutherland's job was to do so. But what did he do? He sexually assaulted her instead. So I understand why he's making this legal argument, because frankly, there is no argument on the merits. He is the father of this child. He raped this woman. His only shot is to get this DNA evidence suppressed, but it's unlikely. Courts have routinely held that you don't need probable cause to get a DNA sample. Happens in family court all the time, or different talk shows. Obviously, that's not court. So what he's arguing would certainly be novel if it were accepted by any appellate court. It's certainly been rejected by the trial court, but really, it's the only defense in this case, a legal argument that would suppress this DNA. Otherwise, he is going to jail.
Kirk Nurmi, any viability here for some sort of mental defense? I mean, someone who does this can't be all right upstairs.
Well, yeah, you're right, Michael. The grotesque circumstances of this case really make you wonder about that. But at the same time, this is a man who was functioning in his life, in his capacity, held down a job, something like that. So there's no diminished capacity. There's no insanity. He knew what he was doing. There was probably repeated attempts at this. So those things don't really come into play here. And as Nima just said, the only thing that comes into play is DNA, and the DNA is not on his side. And in that regard, that makes, and having a bit of a history with this prosecutor, knowing him, makes me think, yes, he is very serious about seeking the prison time. And he knows that 2 or 3 days in trial in this case with DNA experts, and he's going to get the conviction, and he's going to put Mr. Sutherland away for the maximum amount of time he can. And every day, Michael, will be well-deserved.
No question. And just as a follow-up, the CEO of Hacienda Healthcare, as well as the doctor who was treating her, have both been fired. All right, we are tracking this case here at Court TV, and there is an upcoming status conference in this case set for August 9th, and there is a trial date set for September 16th.